And I'm Shanti Garba, co-founder of Triratna Sangha and one of the conveners, along with Shanti Chitta, who's also with us this afternoon, who's going to be our host tomorrow. Tomorrow and Thursday, she's going to be hosting us. And also Apeksha Priya, who works with us and handles technical aspects. And I can't see Angela at the moment, but she's with us at some points as well. But I'll introduce her when she next shows up. So it's my pleasure this afternoon to welcome and introduce Akupa. And this afternoon session runs for 90 minutes until 5 p.m. UK time. So Akupa, for those of you who were here yesterday, has been involved in environmental issues in different ways for about 30 years. He was ordained in 2000 and is based in Newcastle, where he teaches at the Buddhist Center and co-owns a vegan tea house, which he hasn't yet told us about, but hopefully he will today. And he's author of Saving the Earth, a Buddhist View. So that's in the chat and also in the Padlet. So this afternoon, he's back for the second of 3 study sessions with us. Yesterday, he led us in Gratitude and Connection, the ecological body. And this afternoon, he'll be exploring freedom, respect, and kinship, the human world. It's about human connection. And he says, harmony with the earth is inseparable from harmony between people. We'll begin our exploration of the indivisibility of love, beginning with people. So let's give a warm welcome to Akupa for this afternoon session. Thank you.
So hello everyone. Hello from the Shrine Room here at Newcastle Buddhist Centre. Hopefully we have resolved the sound issues from yesterday for those of you here. However, it does mean that I'm now sitting at the front of the building, which is next to quite a busy road. So we chose to buy a Buddhist centre right in the middle of Newcastle, and it's the route of a lot of buses and ambulances, and it's also the sort of the motorbike capital of the northeast of England. Okay, so unfortunately that's just the way it is. So apologies in advance if there's occasional kind of traffic noise going past. Kind of they were here first, so you know I can't kind of get too irritated by it. And we've just got completely used to it by and large here at the centre. Good. So today, as Shanti Garba said, I'd like to talk about freedom, respect, and kinship. Basically, what that means is that I'd like to explore the Metta Bhavana in various aspects this afternoon. In fact, both this afternoon and tomorrow afternoon will be a kind of exploration of the Metta Bhavana, and tomorrow I'll be sort of focusing on the, let's say, the more than human world, animals, trees, and so on. But before I did that, I just wanted to focus, first of all, on the human world. It's often the case, I think, that those of us who are into so-called environmental issues or green issues, that we can treat them a bit sort of separately or a bit differently from social issues or issues of harmony and peace between people. But really, they're inseparable. Harmony between people and the earth, or the more than human, is inseparable from harmony between people. And I say that for several reasons. First of all, I think it's just a sort of general principle that suffering is indivisible. When the Buddha set out on his quest, in a way, it wasn't just a response to his own individual suffering. It was a response to really seeing the universality of suffering, seeing suffering both in himself, but also in others. I think that when we start to sort of elevate our suffering over other people's, then in a way we are exacerbating the problem. Or when we just start talking about, say, the suffering of my community or my people, and not taking into account the wider sort of context of suffering, then we're sort of narrowing down in a way. So suffering, it seems to me, is indivisible. Also, just on a very practical level, if humanity is going to sort of address, the big problems of biodiversity and climate change and so on, it's pretty clear that we need to cooperate. We need to sort of cooperate across boundaries, all sorts of boundaries. And if we're sort of divided into this and that sort of power block and so on, then that seriously impedes our ability. And in a very simple sense, when the world is sort of fixated on war, it means that those other important issues get lost sight of. And it's also just the case that human conflict is, from an ecological point of view, disastrous. It's just the worst thing, generally. If you remember, those of you who remember the Iraq War and that awful sight of oil wells just sort of burning. And there's a lot of war going on. There's the obvious one, but there's also, there are many wars going on right now, and conflicts in Myanmar, Yemen, Tigray, Somalia, Syria, and quite a long list of other places. And you could also say that in a way, the way that we are mistreating the more than human world is often systemically linked to the way we're treating other people. In that the sort of social, economic, political systems that are leading to climate breakdown and so on are very often the same systems that are causing conflict, inequality, and division. So they're very, very interlinked. I think in a way, to work for the healing of the planet, we need to work for peace. I'm sure, in a way, I don't need to sort of convince you of that. But that's why I'm focusing today on the sort of human dimension. And as I say, tomorrow we'll extend that outwards towards the other beings with whom we share this beautiful, shining blue planet. So I've titled it Freedom, Respect and Kinship. this is a way that I've done this before. If you've heard me speak before, it's a way of talking about metta that quite appeals to me, and actually came from Dr. Ambedkar. If you know Dr. Ambedkar, the great Buddhist social reformer, anti-caste reformer of India, one of his great slogans, which was sort of borrowed from the French Revolution, but sort of not. It was also came from the Buddha, he said, is liberty, equality, fraternity. Okay, in inverted commas, liberty, equality, fraternity. But thinking about it, these seem to me as all, what's interesting about them is that these are all aspects of what we call metta, of loving kindness. So I've just given them some different names of freedom, respect, and kinship as being three kind of dimensions of metta, of loving kindness. So I'll come back and we'll explore those a bit later on. However, I want to start out with just a bit of an imaginative exercise which will involve breakout rooms. The exercise is this: just imagine that you are at your local Buddhist centre, if you have one. So you're at your Buddhist centre. You're sitting, perhaps you're drinking some tea, catching up with some of your Sangha friends, and so on, as we do. But somebody walks in the door. Okay, somebody you've not seen before walks in the door. And actually it's several sort of exercises. The first one, imagine that it's somebody really quite different to you, someone of a completely different race, nationality, gender, perhaps with not much shared language, and so on. Okay, you're quite involved in the conversation with your friend. What do you do? Weirdly enough, immediately before I logged on, that happened here at Newcastle Buddhist Centre, and two Malaysian people knocked on the door. And of course I was slightly anxious because I needed to get online to come here and all the rest of it. But fortunately, with some help from Prasiddhi, we managed to be friendly and relaxed and invite them back. Okay, so it's a real situation. It does happen. The second scenario is somebody walks through the door who you disagree with. Now, again, this can be a real situation. Somebody who you know to be, again, it might be someone new to you, but someone either because of the T-shirt they're wearing or because you've seen them in the local press or something like that. You know that they hold some views which you find really problematic. There might be climate change deniers or something like that. Okay. So again, what is your response? And also, well, what's your sort of real response, do you think? And also, what would you like your response to be if they're different? Okay. And the third one, just to sort of ratchet it up a bit further, suppose somebody comes in who's quite an avowed racist or apologist for war. What if they walk in? What's your response? So, you might have all sorts of responses. You might just ignore them. You might actually ask them to leave if you're in a position to do that. You might get into an argument with them. You might be just a bit unfriendly or cool, or you might be welcoming and friendly. You might invite them round for dinner. So I'm not presupposing that because it's difficult in a way. These situations are difficult. I'm not sort of angling for one particular response because it's not that simple. But just, what would you do? So what I'm going to do is just, hopefully this works. I'm going to just put that in the chat. Okay. If you want access to that when you're in the breakout groups, I'm not sure, but I think you might need to cut and paste that if you want that reminder. So yeah, we'll have 20 minutes or so, and just chat about what your feelings would be, what you think your response would be, what you'd like your response to be to those situations.
Cooper, I can't see something in the chat. Maybe press the return or.
I've just sent it to Alyssa in Germany, but nobody else. That's why. I'll just change that.
Okay.
I don't know why.
It's because I've sent something to you beforehand.
Okay, right. There you go. There you go. It should be there now.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Excellent. So we're going into the breakout groups.
Great. I will back. That's great. So, I just wonder if there's any how those groups went. If anyone would like to just put in a few words in the chat. What would you like your response to be in those situations, or is there a difference between how you think you'd respond and how you'd like to respond? Any sort of comments? Hopefully, I would like to see our common humanity with curiosity, but aware of our own negative Vedana and attachment to our agenda for the meeting. Yeah. It's from Nancy. And Zoe, I realised I forgot to ask for help from my friend. Yeah. Even with the more difficult people, Apache Priya, I would want to assume that they are wanting to change by coming to a Buddhist centre. Yeah. Recognising that many people have unmet needs. Lovingly challenging those who express racist or antisocial views. Yeah. Thank you, Ian and Lilia. How to respond with metta if they are full of hate, indeed. Christine, that's a challenge. And Carmen, I would like to remember that there are already a lot of people in the Sangha with views different than mine. That's true, isn't it? It's definitely true. It doesn't have to be new people walking in. It can be people who've been in the Sangha a very long time. The point is, it's really difficult. It's really, really difficult. I know when that has happened here, when people have sort of been expressing views that actually are just different from mine, not necessarily kind of repugnant, just sort of different. I find it quite difficult not to sort of weigh in, and sometimes I do. And there's something about wanting to keep open a sort of heart connection that seems important, and I think just sort of weighing in on argument doesn't seem to be always the way to do that. I seem to remember from my limited experience of non-violent communication in Shantigarbha that a very important sort of foundation of that is, it's compassionate communication, it's open-hearted communication. Correct me if I'm wrong, Shantigarbha. Yeah, you're nodding, that's good. And it occurs to me that actually, metta, loving kindness, is almost like you could think of it as a sort of channel within which communication becomes possible. Without some degree of loving kindness. It's very difficult to communicate either sort of verbally or even, we also communicate just in the way that we live our lives, the example that we set, and so on. And people aren't going to pick up on that if we're not coming from a place of kindness, and yet that can be so difficult. If you're face to face with somebody who is actually perpetrating or has perpetrated violence or apologizes for it in some way, then it's very difficult both to hold them as a human being, but also hold a sense of the people on the receiving end of that as well. Very difficult. So it's no small thing that we're trying to do, but it's a very important thing that we're trying to do. And try to remember that empathizing with someone doesn't mean agreeing with them. Thank you, Shanti Gaba. Very important. I think very important just in the context of, trying to get our message across and trying to set the example of a loving kindness towards the world in general. So I'm just going to move on to say a bit more about freedom, respect, and kinship. So as I said, these are the sort of equivalents. If the political principles are liberty, equality, and fraternity, in that rather old-fashioned speak, then in terms of how does that translate in terms of sort of interpersonal response, in terms of my response to another person, including those people who are quite different from me and also those people with whom I disagree. So freedom. It's almost like this is the beginnings. Also, incidentally, I'm sort of laying the groundwork a bit for tomorrow as well, because these are very important in terms of our attitude to the more than human world as well. So freedom. It's almost like when we bring someone to mind in the Metta Bhavana, the first thing we need to do is to give them the gift of freedom, and that is to say particularly freedom from any sort of prejudice or subjection to power or expectation coming from me. Okay, so very often the case, we see a person and we might hold all sorts of prejudices. Our conditioning can leave us with all sorts of kind of knee-jerk prejudices based on their race, based on their gender, based on their size, all sorts of things, just because they remind us of somebody we don't like. It could be something as trivial as that. We can judge people in that way. People who are close to us, we can sort of have expectations of them. We expect people to be a certain way towards us, to show us affection or whatever, and can get upset if that doesn't happen. So foundation for metta is just to free them from that. If you want to put it in a phrase, I free you from any prejudice, subjection to power or expectation from my part, on my part. Okay. So the second one, respect. So yeah, respecting them as a being. Again, a phrase that you could use in this one would be, I respect your place on this earth to live your life in peace. I respect your place on this earth to live your life in peace. So yeah, not only am I sort of freeing you from any expectations or power on my part, but I recognise your place, as it were, that you've got a place here. Okay. And the third one, kinship. Well, we are all kin, you know, all life on this earth, we are family. Often you can say that of, you know, the human race generally, that we are family. You can sort of say it as a almost like a slogan, but actually it's also literally true that, you know, we are actually all related to each other if you go that far back. But we are connected. We are deeply connected. And one of the things that arises from that, from a sense of kinship, is in a way a readiness, a sort of solidarity, you could say, like a readiness to protect that other person, or to help in whatever way. Now that raises a difficult question. Well, I can't protect everybody in the world. I can't even help everybody in the world. But how about something like, for a phrase on this one, I acknowledge our kinship and will take you into account in how I live my life. Or your life affects my life. Okay, so it's opening up this element of loving kindness, kind of opens up that element of metta which becomes ready to actually help. It doesn't mean we can help everybody in an immediate sort of way. Yeah, often in Triratna, there's often sort of talk about this idea of a sort of sphere of influence and a sphere of concern. And it's something I always feel it's not that simple, actually, that you need to, the usual kind of resolution of the tension we feel about feeling concern for the whole of the world, but actually not being able to help. The resolution of that is just to pay attention to what your sphere of influence is. And there's some wisdom in that. But I also felt that it's not that straightforward, that it's not that neat. That actually it is good to, even looking beyond the world that you can immediately help, that nevertheless we can come from that place of freedom and respect and kinship. And even if, say, with the war in Ukraine, that's very much in the news, and if you're anything like me, it really gets into your sort of psyche in a way. I had a horrible dream about Vladimir Putin a few nights ago. And, you know, you might feel that there's not much you can do. There are some things we can do, but by and large, you know, we can't sort of stop it from happening. So even that, though that's the case, in a way, the knowledge that that is happening in the world, it can inspire me to want to be a force for peace. It can at least do that. It can at least renew my desire to cultivate love and kindness to the world. It can deepen my wish to sort of cut across any divisions that are there in my life. So sometimes, yeah, having a sense of what's going on in the world, I think, can sort of spur us to some sort of change, even if we can't help in an obvious sort of way. Though, you know, of course, it's good not to get into overwhelm with the world as well. So freedom, respect, kinship. I free you from any prejudice, subjection to power or expectation on my part. I respect your place on this earth to live your life in peace. I acknowledge our kinship and will take you into account in how I live my life. Your life affects my life. Okay. So that's just a particular sort of way into the Metta Bhavana. That sort of, I don't know, it sort of makes sense to me. But it's also just interesting that it can sort of translate into action in the world in terms of liberty, equality, and let's not call it fraternity, solidarity, or whatever. You know, it can become a sort of seamless transition from me sitting in Metta Bhavana to action in the world, and even political action in the world. So I thought we'd actually do a period of the Metta Bhavana with that in mind. Now I've almost finished typing up those phrases for the chat, so I'll just do the last one. I acknowledge our kinship. Your life affects my life. Okay, so that's there. That's there in the chat. So let's get into meditation posture. So I'm going to lead this through maybe slightly differently to how we do it normally. So I'm going to start off with ourselves, then a friend, and then perhaps that's somebody who's just very different to us, someone of a very different language, race, religion, etc. And then the difficult person, you know, someone who actually is involved in or apologizes for violence or racism or so on, and then the world as a whole. So I'll take us through this just stage by stage. So first of all, just settling into meditation posture. There go the motorbikes. It's relaxing. Metta Bhavna. So beginning with ourselves, first of all, just acknowledging that it's a difficult and painful thing to live in a world where conflict is going on. It's difficult for us, let alone others. So giving yourself some freedom. Perhaps just letting go of expectations that we have of ourselves. Or any negative judgments that you make of yourself. Allowing yourself to be worthy of occupying your place on this earth. Committing to caring for yourself. bringing to mind a friend. Just freeing them from any expectation that we might have on our part. Just having a sense of them as a human being in their own right. Be free. Affirming their place on this earth, in this world, rejoicing in their place in this world. And with that kinship, that sense of kinship, your life affects my life. So now bringing to mind somebody who's just quite different from you, different background, different culture, language, race, gender. Maybe it's somebody that you actually know of, or it might be someone that you just imagine. I free you from any prejudice, subjection to power or expectation on my part. Because that's what I aspire to do. I respect your place on this earth to live your life in peace. I acknowledge our kinship. I will take you into account in how I live my life. Your life affects my life. So now bringing to mind somebody very difficult. So could be challenging, but somebody who might be an apologist for violence or a perpetrator. In the end, what I would wish them is the peace that comes from loving kindness. May you experience the freedom and peace that comes from loving kindness. May you experience the peace that comes from loving kindness. Now bringing the world as a whole to mind. May I let go of any prejudice, expectation, or desire to exert power over anybody. May I respect everybody's place to live out their lives on this earth. May my life express kinship with all people. May I live my life taking into account every other person. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. I hope that provided, well, just a helpful alternative way into the Metta Bhavana, one that I found helpful anyway. And as I say, in tomorrow's session, we'll be applying that to beyond the human world, to the more than human world. Okay. So, yeah, with that, I'll hand back to Shanti Garba.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Akupa. Thank you very much. So, as we all do, wave.